is Alice in Muggerland, with the man who would be Hufflepuff, Bilious McDaniels, and Alice, the mudblood who joined the Hogwarts Express.
This is Bilious McDaniels, and I humbly want to apologize before you hear the actual podcast about my sound quality. I was having issues technology-wise, and we really wanted to get this out for the fans. So, do apologize for that. The issue has been fixed, so the next 2 episodes are going to be a little bit scratchy. That being said, I'm not going to be posting these as Patreon only exclusives, only because of the technical aspect. So thank you for your patience. Hey, Alice.
Hey, Bill.
It's time,
Time for what?
This is going to be the last recordings of the chapter-by-chapter breakdown of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Woohoo.
We're going to go through, and after this chapter, we're actually going to be putting together a special bonus where we go over parts of the book with one of the members of the Magical Society of Librarians, who will be introduced to us next week when we talk about the book as a whole. So you're going to get to meet another wizard.
That's exciting.
Yep, it is exciting for not just you, but for all the fans of the Alice in Muggerland fandom. What fandom that we do actually have. So we're going to go over 2 chapters, chapter 16 and 17. First chapter being Through the Trap Door. Let's go through and get started. The end of terms exams are the highlight of the beginning of this, where the trio finishes all their exams, and they're basically relaxing, waiting for they're going to get their results in 2 weeks. But something's bothering Harry.
Yeah, and that something is a problem that he has been working on since, several chapters ago. And maybe he didn't even realize it was this question that was bothering him. But the question that comes to the forefront of his mind once all of the exams are over is, just how did Hagrid get that dragon?
Yep, how did he get the dragon? And at the time, Harry talks about this with Ron and Hermione, and about his thought patterns just with the scar itself, and they're discounting it. Go to Madame Pomfrey. It's just end of exams. But Harry runs off to Hagrid to talk to him about the issue on his mind.
Right. So, since the confrontation in the Forbidden Forest, Harry has been having pain in his forehead. He is aware that whatever it is, it's not strictly just a physical ailment. That this is a sign that something bad is happening or about to happen. Maybe has already happened. He's really not sure. But what he does realize is that the chance of Hagrid, who would clearly very much love to be a dragon mummy, somehow came into possession of a dragon in England, where dragons, it's not legal to breed them. This question's bothering him, and he realizes that it looks almost like a bribe. And not a bribe in the idea that Hagrid was intentionally bought for the information as to how to get past Fluffy. It feels like maybe this dragon egg really was exchanged for that information. He's just not clear how. So he has to go talk to Hagrid and get this off his chest, or off his forehead, if you will. Find out just exactly how he came to have this dragon egg.
And he says, yeah, I met a guy, we had some drinks, you know how that horror stories go, not only in the Muggle world, but in the Wizarding world too. And in this case, he lets it slip that, oh yeah, Fluffy's easy to handle. All you have to do is play Fluffy some music and they go right to sleep.
Apparently it doesn't even matter what kind of music. So, Norwegian death metal will put Fluffy to sleep. It's an interesting feature on this particular guard dog. This, of course, is a big problem because kind of all along, as they've been worried about Snape getting past various enchantments guarding the Philosopher's Stone, they keep saying, but how on earth are they going to get past Fluffy? Well, it turns out that's not really that difficult after all.
They run to the school, try to find Dumbledore. McGonagall's shocked that they know that the Philosopher's Stone exists. Basically discounts them because they're kids, their teacher's already handling it, they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, I didn't really like this scene very much. There's something about these scenes that we see play out in movies and stories over and over again, where an adult doesn't believe a child who's telling the truth. Unfortunately, I didn't feel like this was entirely in keeping with Professor McGonagall's character to not trust them. There's an issue, except maybe it's because they recently got into trouble being out and about when they shouldn't be. It's not really clear why suddenly she doesn't have faith in, 3 of, by all accounts, her best students. It was not a fun scene to read, but apparently necessary because now the kids feel that they have to go themselves to chase the person they believe to be Snape into the depths of Hogwarts looking for the stone.
Yep, the person that believes to be Snape, which we'll get to in the next part of we get to that part later on. So they get they decide they have to go in, they get the invisibility cloak, fighting ensues between them. You guys have to go, no, we're gonna go, blah, 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 blah. You have to be smackety. And the 3 of them go off, and they go to their first unexpected task.
And it is a very unexpected task because the first task is they have to get past Neville. Neville, of all people. And I just love this scene because it's very difficult to stand up to anybody for Neville. And in this case, he's standing up to his friends. Yeah, I love that he found a backbone and he decided to use it. Unfortunately for him, this left him in a bit of a situation.
I mean, the last time he stood up to anybody, it was Crabbe and Goyle, and he got the stuffing knocked out of him. And now that's something that was like supposedly a good standing up, because he's standing up he's backing Ron up, who's backing up his friend. Now, or backing up his honor, but now it's like, look, I'm backing up Gryffindor as a whole, and you guys are going to screw this up. So I know you're my friends and all, but I will fight you.
Yep. Bring
it. And Hermione brought it, and it was like Tyson versus Spinks.
So is boxing really popular in the wizarding world?
Sometimes we do go through and resort to no-match fisticuffs and have to study them in case we are wandless. So, yes.
Fair enough. Yeah, so Neville gets left on the floor, unable to move. Basically, every time he stands up for himself or anybody else, it ends badly for him, but I still like the fact that he had the guts to stand up to his friends and tell them to knock it off with this sneaking around Hogwarts. So, step 1, get past Fluffy. They did that. It wasn't that hard because of the music thing. Quite a loophole. But then they end up through a trapdoor and ensnared by a plant called the Devil's Snare.
I think this highlights all 3 of the trio's strengths for this task, because you have Hermione figuring out what it is, Harry giving her the result of how to fight it, and when Hermione, the rare time that Hermione freezes up, but there is no wood, you have Ron saying, "Are you a witch or what?" Which kind of like breaks Hermione out of her phrasing to go through and get the fire.
Yeah, I gotta disagree with you. I feel like that was the author needed Ron to do something useful. And so she had Hermione have this momentary hesitation. And I just don't buy it. She's used this spell before. She used it on Snape. I don't think she's suddenly going to be confronted with a plant that's afraid of fire and not realize that she can create fire with her wand. So, yeah, I think I'm just calling it. I think this was just to give Ron something useful to do so he could continue to contribute as a character. However, the good news for Ron is he will actually get to contribute very quickly.
Well, I'm going to, at the same time, I'm going to slightly disagree with you because while this is something that Hermione has done before, and while she had one of her friends in peril at the time, Hermione herself wasn't in peril the first time when she lit fire to Snape. Not only is Harry in peril, but Ron is also in peril, and if the Devil's Snare spreads, she would have also been in peril. So I think this is one of those situations where, yeah, I could see it, but at the same time, because I've looked through the other documents, I think this is the occasion that she's really learned from. And I think that's important for the future, too.
And I think you feel like Ron needs to be important, and so they had Hermione freeze up when she just definitely would not have. We'll have to agree to disagree.
Yes, I guess we will. So we'll move on to the next task, which is basically a Harry task.
Yeah, we're going to chase flying keys all over the place. I mean, this is what he has been training for with the Quidditch. So not very interesting. I mean, the mental picture of the keys flying around is kind of neat, but not a very interesting task. Harry manages to catch the right key, put it in the right lock. They move on to the next task where Ron is really going to get to shine.
It's Wizard's Chest, which it's live action Wizard's Chest.
Yeah, with huge life-size pieces. And apparently, when they go to take over a space, like they really take over a space. This is not just a polite game of chess where they kind of nudge the piece off to the side. It's coming to blows. So high stakes, large scale Wizard's Chess.
Yeah, honestly, when you're playing Wizard's Chess in real life, it's actually detrimental to the players too. I've seen a rook hit a pawn so hard that it hit my opponent in the eye. It wasn't fun. There was a lot of crying involved.
By you, I assume. Moving on. Ron takes this over. They all become pieces themselves because the goal is to cross the chessboard. And Ron handles it magnificently, but also sacrifices himself so that the other two can cross. And it's quite a touching moment. I think it's really summed up when Ron basically says, "That's chess." I mean, we're going to have to do it this way. I think that says a lot about the character of Ron. It says nothing bad about him at all. He is willing to sacrifice himself for his friends.
And Harry technically loses a piece in regards to this large game of chess, so to speak, because the next task is not actually a task that they have to do. They basically find a knocked out troll.
Yeah. So that was lucky. The troll's already been knocked out. However, this does, confirm their suspicions that they are chasing someone through this series of challenges, and that person is still ahead of them. So the troll is knocked out. Good news. Next up is definitely a Hermione task. It is a challenge of logic and wits. And this is very similar to a lot of logic puzzles that I've seen. One of my favorite ones that comes up is, appearing on an island where one person always tells the truth, somebody never tells the truth, and the other person lies back and forth, and you have to figure out the correct answer to your question, knowing that about the participants. Anyway, here she is faced with a whole bunch of bottles. And there's a fire burning in front of them and behind them. And it's clear from the clue that some of these bottles will kill you, and only one bottle will get you through the fire in front of you, and then there's another bottle that will get you through the fire behind you. Hermione's very clever, though, so she managed to figure it out. Harry proceeds forward through the fire in front of them into the next room, and she goes back. presumably to get help for Ron, who's been knocked out by the chess piece, and to get some assistance from some adult. Hopefully they will believe her this time.
And this is also a case where Harry actually does take charge. He does tell Hermione to go back to the fire, get Ron, go get help. And he's going to try to go off and fend off Snape. And Hermione goes through and tells Harry that he's a great wizard, which Harry immediately basically says, no, I'm not, because he's comparing himself to Hermione as like being a wizard. And Hermione basically points out the other traits about being a great wizard to Harry that he doesn't realize that he has, basically, which I think helps steels him for the next challenge, so to speak.
So the next challenge is he's finally confronted with the person they've been chasing, and this is the very beginning of Chapter 17, the last chapter in the book, The Man with Two Faces.
Now, let me ask a question. When you found out the person in particular, and he explains things that happen, did you go back into the other chapters to see what you missed?
I did a little bit, and there's not very much there to tell you that this is the person who's actually Voldemort's confidant. It really does kind of come out of left field just a little bit.
Well, we are talking about Professor Quirrell. I know that when I went through and found out about this, I went all the way back to the Quidditch match and saw the line where it says, and she even knocked over Professor Quirrell. I'm like, oh, there it was. Yep. That was the one hint there. And then he goes through and he breaks down other things. It's like, oh, we should have seen all of this. And it also brings up a point which I'll get to later about this chapter where we talk about what's going on. So Harry is confronted not only with Quirrell, but with the last task.
Well, and the last task is one that he is uniquely prepared for because of previous chapters and his conversation with Dumbledore about the nature of the mirror that
the Mirror of Erised
that he is now confronted with, which is a very interesting way to interesting way for this to be wrapped up. This is Dumbledore's challenge, and it's quite elegant in its simplicity, but also quite unbreakable for at least for the likes of Professor Quirrell. Quirrell is confronted with the mirror, and he cannot figure out how to get it to work. Again, for those of you who don't remember, this is the mirror that shows you your heart's desire. So when Harry was confronted with this before, what he saw was his family. But whoever looks into the mirror sees what they want. And so somebody who wants only to use the stone is not going to be able to get the stone by looking into this mirror.
Quirrell's going off on the villainous monologue about how he's going to get the stone. Dumbledore's not going to get him in time. He's going to kill Harry. It's the villainous monologue that not only predates Muggle culture, but also when you read wizard fiction, it's the same exact thing. You have wizard villains that like to monologue.
Yes. Definitely. This is a great example of villainous monologuing. Turns out, though, that there's actually two villains in this room with Harry. He just doesn't know it quite yet. And this is, I gotta tell you, this is creepy.
Because first Harry hears another voice that seems to come from Quirrell that says, use the boy. And then he is used to solve the task.
Right. And where is this other voice coming from? It turns out it's coming out of Quirrell's turban, the ubiquitous turban that Quirrell wears, which I had, initially when he was described, I'd kind of wondered about it a little bit, but, wizards are fashionistas, and so I didn't think much more about it than as a fashion statement. But it appears he was using this turban to mask the fact that, he's got this thing growing out of the back of his head.
So after Harry gets the stone from the mirror, we find out more about the thing in the back of Quirrell's head, which, Alice, the reveal?
Turns out it's Voldemort. Ew. Just ew. Yeah, that's gross.
I mean, you think about it, it's like, for the No Magis, it's a children's book. But the idea of some face growing out of the back of someone's head.
Yeah, just totally gross. And the way the face is described, creepy. That's all I got for you on that. That is creepy. Harry does get the stone out of the mirror because what he wants at that moment when he looks into the mirror, more than anything, is to have the stone and have it be safe from Voldemort and Quirrell. And so it just kind of slips into his pocket, just like that. Again, a very cool challenge that Dumbledore has thrown. But there is still the issue of how he is now going to get away from, Quirrell / Voldemort. And the answer to that is...
Next thing you know, Quirrell goes off to stop Harry and his hands are burning.
Yeah, that's kind of weird. But again, throughout this confrontation, Harry is almost paralyzed by the pain in his scar. Whenever he has this proximity to Voldemort, he feels this really intense pain, which makes me wonder how he got through Professor Quirrell's previous lectures, because presumably Voldemort's been there the whole time. It really is creepy. Just really, really deeply unsettling. Quirrell goes to grab him, and he can't hang on to him because of his hands start burning. It's kind of interesting. Not really a good explanation for why. And then suddenly Harry blacks out. And we don't really know what's happened, but we find out that Dumbledore, slightly late, but late is better than never, appears on the scene, presumably takes care of Professor Quirrell / Voldemort.
Because the next thing you know about Harry, he's in the hospital wing.
Right. That's where this part of the story comes to an end. We have a few pages after that describing a little more about what happened. Dumbledore had been sent away on what turned out to be a fake trip to the Ministry, and he realized that, and he came back and he intervened.
The school loves Harry again because, yay, you did something great. Here's a bunch of candy.
Yes. Probably the most touching part of this is when they go to the year-end feast.
But let's go back, because an important aspect actually has come up with the talk, not just about, especially like how Harry was able to defeat Quirrell. Dumbledore basically goes through and explains that the love is basically Harry's mother sacrificing herself for Harry is what saved Harry in this case. Because with hate and greed in Quirrell's heart on top of Voldemort, they couldn't touch Harry with that. Yeah. Now, it might not seem like a big deal now, but as the books progress, it's going to come out more and more as more of the story gets unraveled. But one of the things when I went through and read through this the first time, I actually went all the way back again to where he first met Quirrell. And Quirrell did shake his hand in the Leaky Cauldron, because Voldemort took over after Quirrell failed at Gringotts.
Oh, interesting. So that's very observant of you to point that out.
Because that is an important aspect of just with how deeply Voldemort goes through and puts in. And they go, Voldemort and Dumbledore goes and explains more about Snape and Harry and their past and things of that nature. He doesn't go into great detail about it, but that detail also starts bringing up more and more as the books progress. So, as you were saying, the feast.
The feast. So he manages to get out of the hospital ward to attend the end of the year feast. And this is where the House Cup is awarded. Of course, it was their hijinks that had cost Gryffindor the cup because they had been docked so many points. But in light of the recent activities, they felt that it was fitting to award them some points for what they did to keep the stone safe. And so Dumbledore makes the announcement that they're going to win 50 points for the best played game of chess to Ron.
Which Percy is like, that's my brother. He beat McGonagall. That's my brother.
We have Hermione getting 50 points for cool logic in the face of fire. I think that's I think that would be a really good tagline for her.
Yeah.
We have Harry Potter, 60 points for pure nerve and outstanding courage, which he did show quite a bit of both of those things in pursuing this stone.
But most importantly, continue.
Right, but that only came up to a tie with Slytherin, which is why I would have liked to have had a running scoreboard. But 10 points are awarded to Neville Longbottom, the real hero in this story, because he stood up to his friends, and that is how Gryffindor won the House Cup. Woohoo! Go, Gryffindor!
He had to go through and get his just rewards due to all the stuff that has happened to him throughout this book. I mean, he breaks his arm in flying lessons. He gets beaten up by Crabbe and Goyle. He gets the leg locker curse put up to where he has to hop up flights of stairs to get to Gryffindor Tower. He's basically the butt of every joke. And he finally gets his just rewards.
Yeah, I gotta say, favorite character for these 2 chapters, 100% Neville Longbottom. Go Neville.
Then they go through they pack their bags, they go onto the Hogwarts Express, and everybody starts to get ready to go home.
Yeah, so from this incredible high to this book ends with Uncle Vernon picking Harry up from the station. Kind of a bummer.
It is, because if you think about it, most kids are excited about their summer holidays, and Harry is like, now I just had this adventure. Now I have to go back to that and hope that I could spend time at Ron's at some point. And I don't know when that's going to happen.
Yeah, that's a really unfortunate reversal for him. Like you said, most kids are, they love their summer vacation. And for Harry, it's the exact opposite. But on the bright side, he gets to spend more time each year now at Hogwarts than he does at home. But it ends on kind of a down note. So I'm looking forward to starting book number 2 so I can follow his adventures back at Hogwarts.
So I'm going to let our fans know and what's going to be going on for the next couple of podcasts that are coming up. One thing that we're going to do is next week we're going to be speaking with another member of the Wizarding Society as we go through and talk about parts of this book as a whole. I find that she is very well suited for this special guest position, and we will go through and talk about the book as a whole and things of that nature.
I can't wait.
Also, something that we are planning for our Patreon users is the No-Mags and Muggles have their own moving pictures, just like we do as a magical society, but they put sound with their pictures. So we are going to sit through and do a live commentary on the first movie, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Sounds like fun to me.
And I get to go through and talk about how things actually aren't, how close did the No-Mags get to the movie, while this will go through and also give some more visuals to what was just read.
Yeah,
to Alice.
It sounded a lot more fun to me before you said that.
Well, next time we do the commentary setup, I'll have you go through and introduce the commentary setup. All right. So speaking of Patreon, you can go through and join our Patreon at www.patreon.com/Vicarious Muggleland. That's where everything goes out early. So as it gets edited, it gets put onto the Patreon to be further released to usually the general public at that point.
And starting with book 2, we want you guys to tell us what you want to hear. If you have any questions, do you have any questions for the start of the podcast? Where I badly explain something that exists in the Muggle world, or maybe you can make Bill badly explain something that exists in the Wizarding world. So give us your feedback on Twitter or Facebook. We'd love to hear from you. Ask your questions, make your comments. Let us know what you'd like to hear in future podcasts.
Yeah, so on Facebook, if you go to www.facebook.com/Alice in Muggleland. On Twitter, we're at A in Muggleland. And you can also email us at AliceInMugglelandPodcast@gmail.com. So, are you ready to finish wrapping up this adventure?
Sounds good to me.
All right, so not the last time for this season, but for this chapter, Nox.